I have never told a single human being this truth, but 3 years ago, I sat slumped over the steering wheel of my battered sedan at 2 a.m., sobbing uncontrollably because I did not have 50 cents to pay a highway toll, while my phone screen flashed red with notifications that my credit score had plummeted to 480. My liquid net worth was minus $78,000. My monthly cash flow was negative $3,000, and my mind was entirely consumed by the suffocating weight of high-interest debt that accumulated at 29% annually. 3 years ago, I stared at a bank statement displaying a negative balance of $78,000 while calculating how many days I could survive on canned beans. Today, my automated asset distribution system generates over $400 in daily passive yield while I sleep soundly in my debt-free home. You see, society tells you that financial failure is a slow process of poor choices, but the devastating reality is that a loan default can happen in the blink of an eye when a single medical emergency hits your household. That night, sitting in the cold silence of my car, with the hum of the distant highway mocking my poverty, I realized that working 60 hours a week at a corporate desk job was not going to save me from Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The debt collectors were relentless, calling 17 times a day, their sharp voices cutting through my dignity like razor blades, demanding immediate lump sum payments that I physically did not possess. When the landlord pounded on my door at 7 in the morning, demanding $1,200 in back rent, while the smell of stale, cold coffee hung heavy in my cramped, unheated studio apartment, I knew I had hit absolute rock bottom. He stood in the doorway, eyeing my worn-out shoes and cheap suit with pure contempt, telling me I had 48 hours to vacate the premises before he called the sheriff to toss my few belongings onto the pavement. My hands trembled as I gripped the edge of the wooden table, feeling the splintered pine beneath my fingertips, suffocating under a cash crunch so severe that buying a loaf of bread required calculating the change hidden under my sofa cushions. 2 years ago, I stood motionless as an arrogant landlord threatened to dump my life onto a rainy sidewalk. Today, I hold the deeds to multiple cash-flowing real estate properties that generate predictable monthly income regardless of economic volatility. I was drowning in a sea of financial toxicity, completely unaware that a bizarre, counterintuitive algorithm concealed within old institutional banking manuals was about to cross my path. It started on a Tuesday night inside a dimly lit public library where I sought refuge from the winter cold. I met a retired venture capitalist named Arthur, a man with silver hair, piercing blue eyes, and an unshakable aura of calm. He observed me frantically filling out credit card consolidation applications, took a quiet sip from his thermos, and said words that stripped away every economic delusion I had ever held. He told me that applying for more debt to pay off high-interest debt was like pouring gasoline on a house fire to put out the flames. Arthur looked at my ruined spreadsheets, shook his head, and told me that the entire modern financial system is designed to entrap the middle class in a cycle of wage slavery by manipulating their desire for immediate comfort. He laid down a faded leather notebook filled with handwritten formulas and introduced me to what he called the operational strategy blueprint, a tactical wealth extraction system designed to turn toxic liabilities into self-liquidating engine parts. He looked me dead in the eye and whispered that if I followed his exact mathematical framework without deviation for 90 days, I would build an unassailable financial citadel that no collection agency, bank, or economic recession could ever touch. But he warned me that the first rule of this blueprint required an act of extreme discipline that went completely against human instinct. Rule number 1 of the operational strategy blueprint was titled Zero-Based Tactical Triage. Arthur explained that before a single dollar could be invested into building passive income, I had to stop the hemorrhaging of capital by completely dismantling my personal consumption structure. I had to audit every single penny flowing out of my life, cutting all non-essential expenses down to absolute zero and establishing a micro-emergency fund of exactly $1,000 within 21 days. I looked at him in total disbelief, asking how someone with a negative cash flow could possibly save a single cent when the interest alone was consuming every dollar earned from my active income. 2 years ago, I argued with a veteran investor that saving money was mathematically impossible for a broke worker. Today, I execute systematic capital allocation strategies that route tens of thousands of dollars directly into income-generating assets every single month. Arthur drew a simple diagram on a yellow notepad, pointing to the toxic loop of compound interest working against me. He explained that credit card companies charge a compounding penalty rate that compounds daily, meaning my $78,000 balance was compounding to $89,000 within 12 months if left unchecked. To break this chain, he ordered me to execute an aggressive debt snowball strategy, combined with statutory validation letters sent directly to credit reporting agencies under federal fair debt collection laws. I spent the next 3 nights in my cold apartment typing precise, legally structured dispute letters to all 3 major credit bureaus, demanding strict verification of every debt record on my file. I manually logged every line item into a customized spreadsheet, tracking every penny spent on basic survival, cutting my daily food budget down to $4.50. The psychological toll was unbearable. My colleagues at work ate expensive catered lunches while I sat in the break room chewing on dry oats, enduring their cruel snickers and condescending glances. They thought I was losing my mind, but they had no idea that my secret letters were working silently in the background, exposing massive administrative oversights made by the debt collection firms. Within 45 days, 3 major collection accounts totaling $22,000 were permanently deleted from my record due to the agency's failure to provide legal proof of ownership within the mandatory 30-day statutory window. My credit score jumped 85 points overnight, suddenly opening doors that had been locked shut for years. But this was merely the setup, because the real trial was about to test the absolute limits of my sanity. Rule number 2 of the operational strategy blueprint commanded me to construct an automated wealth machine using the principle of dollar-cost averaging into physical hard assets and low-cost index funds. Arthur instructed me that as soon as my negative cash flow stabilized to zero, every spare dollar, even if it was just $5 a day, had to be automatically transferred into a high-yield asset account before I paid a single personal bill. I had to treat my future self as the primary creditor, enforcing a strict capital preservation protocol that forced my daily lifestyle to adapt to whatever minimal remainder was left behind. I set up an automated transfer of $10 every morning at 6 a.m., watching the small sum leave my checking account and enter a dedicated index portfolio, targeting an average historical return of 8% adjusted for inflation. It felt insignificantly small, almost laughable, when stacked against my remaining $56,000 of high-interest consumer loans. The doubt crept into my mind every single evening like a parasite, whispering that $10 a day would take a lifetime to create meaningful net worth growth. 18 months ago, I questioned whether saving $10 a day could ever change the trajectory of my life. Today, that exact automated compounding engine commands a diversified asset portfolio that generates life-changing financial freedom. Just as the momentum began to build, disaster struck with ruthless precision on a frozen Thursday afternoon in November. The corporate firm where I worked announced an immediate sweeping downsize, laying off 30% of its workforce without severance pay, effective immediately. My primary source of active income vanished in an instant, leaving me stranded in an icy parking lot with $42 in my checking account and a mountain of unpaid bills waiting at home. The cold wind sliced through my coat as I stood beside my car, listening to the heavy metallic click of my phone ringing as I tried to call my bank to request a temporary hardship pause. The representative on the other end answered with a cold, scripted voice, informing me that my request was denied and that failure to make the upcoming payment of $1,400 within 7 days would trigger immediate legal acceleration and asset garnishment. I felt the air leave my lungs, my knees buckling under the overwhelming weight of impending financial ruin, realizing that my fragile progress was about to be utterly crushed under the boots of institutional finance. I retreated to my apartment, staring at the blank screen of my laptop in absolute silence while the rain beat mercilessly against the glass windows. The dark moment had arrived, the ultimate precipice where 99% of people surrender to defeat, accept bankruptcy, and resign themselves to a lifetime of financial servitude. I sat there in the dark for 6 agonizing hours, the cold air seeping through the window frames, feeling the phantom pains of panic tightening around my chest like an iron band. I pulled out Arthur's leather notebook, turning to the final marked page that I had not yet been permitted to read, titled The Financial Citadel Architecture. The note inside read simply, "Crisis is the ultimate liquidity event for those who understand how to deploy asymmetric leverage when everyone else is paralyzed by fear." It was at this precise moment of absolute rock bottom that I uncovered the hidden mechanism that would flip the entire equation on its head. I realized that while I possessed no liquid cash, I possessed an immense reserve of unmonetized intellectual capital and deep operational knowledge regarding digital asset optimization. Instead of panicking and searching for another soul-crushing minimum wage job, I decided to deploy rule number 3, asymmetrical value arbitrage. I spent 48 straight hours without sleep, operating on pure adrenaline and cold water, building a specialized, automated service framework that optimized digital marketing funnels for small, struggling local businesses. I wrote 20 personalized cold outreach proposals every single day, targeting small business owners who were losing thousands of dollars a month due to broken checkout systems and terrible cash flow management. I offered them a zero-risk, performance-based contract. I would fix their client acquisition pipelines for free, taking only a 15% royalty on the net new revenue generated by my system. On the fourth day of relentless pitching, sitting in a crowded coffee shop where I consumed only free tap water, my phone chimed with an incoming notification that made my heart stop. A regional medical equipment distributor, buried under $50,000 in lost monthly sales due to broken online conversion pages, signed my performance-based contract without hesitating. I spent 72 continuous hours rewriting their entire digital infrastructure, optimizing their payment gateways, and implementing an automated customer retention system that plugged their cash leakage. Within 14 days, my system generated $38,000 in gross new sales for their business, resulting in an immediate commission payment of $5,700 sent directly into my account. 18 months ago, I was begging banks for a temporary pause on a $1,400 payment while staring into the abyss of total insolvency. Today, that very same automated optimization framework operates across 24 enterprise accounts, producing predictable high-margin cash flow that completely dwarfed my former corporate salary. Instead of blowing that initial commission on lifestyle upgrades or temporary comforts, I strictly executed rule number 4 of the operational strategy blueprint: strategic reinvestment into inflation hedge assets and yield-bearing capital. I took $4,000 of that payout and instantly allocated it across physical bullion assets and high-yield treasury instruments, locking in guaranteed yields while protecting my growing capital against the eroding forces of monetary expansion. I funneled every remaining dollar into my dollar-cost averaging engine, systematically acquiring undervalued market index shares during the peak of economic uncertainty, buying assets at massive discounts while the rest of the market panic sold in terror. My net worth swung from negative $78,000 to positive $45,000 in less than 7 months, creating a self-sustaining financial flywheel that accelerated with every passing quarter. The turning point was so powerful, so mathematically definitive, that my old debt collectors stopped calling altogether, not because I hid from them, but because I paid off every single remaining verified liability in one single triumphant lump sum payment. I will never forget the surreal feeling of standing in the bank lobby, handing the teller a certified cashier's check to liquidate the last remaining balance of my high-interest debt, watching the system status change from delinquent to paid in full. The manager came out to shake my hand, offering me premium credit lines and private wealth management services, the exact same institution that had threatened to seize my assets just 12 months prior. 2 years ago, bank managers treated my presence in their lobby like a security hazard. Today, those same financial institutions compete fiercely for the privilege of holding my liquid reserves and managing my investment accounts. When you master the math behind compound interest and understand how to engineer positive cash flow under high-pressure conditions, the world ceases to be a dangerous maze and transforms into a predictable playground of opportunity. I began teaching Arthur's operational strategy blueprint to a select group of determined individuals who were caught in the same financial quicksand I once inhabited, watching them execute these exact principles to systematically erase hundreds of thousands of dollars in consumer debt.
One of my early students, a single mother carrying $40,000 in student loans and credit card balance with a credit score stuck in the low fives, applied rule number 1 and rule number 2 with military precision. Within 9 months, she completely eliminated her toxic interest liabilities, rebuilt her credit rating past 750, and established an automated Roth IRA portfolio that guarantees her early retirement security. This brings us to rule number 5, the ultimate mandate of the operational strategy blueprint: the construction of an impenetrable financial citadel. A true citadel is not merely about accumulating a large net worth. It is about building a multi-layered defensive matrix of uncorrelated assets that generate passive income regardless of market crashes, currency devaluation, or geopolitical turmoil. Your citadel consists of 3 distinct concentric rings, a foundation of highly liquid cash equivalents forming a 12-month emergency fund, a middle layer of automated index funds practicing systematic dollar-cost averaging, and an outer core of real estate and physical precious metals acting as an unbreakable inflation hedge. When your system reaches this level of structural maturity, you no longer work for currency. Currency becomes a disciplined army of soldiers working around the clock to capture more market share for your family legacy. Look at your current bank statement right now and ask yourself a brutally honest question. Are you actively building an automated financial citadel that will grant you absolute sovereignty? Or are you passively surrendering your freedom to a system designed to keep you broke, anxious, and dependent on your next paycheck? If you continue to make excuses, if you keep postponing the execution of basic financial discipline, and if you keep ignoring the mathematical laws of compounding wealth, you are consciously choosing to remain a prisoner of debt for the rest of your natural life. The exact blueprint that rescued me from the cold despair of a sedan at 2 a.m. is laid out right before you, waiting for a decisive mind to take action, seize control of their cash flow, and rewrite their financial destiny starting this very second. The choice is entirely yours. Will you close this screen and slip back into the comfortable delusion of economic safety? Or will you take total command of your asset allocation, wipe out your toxic debts, and forge your own financial citadel, starting today?